The Education Assessment and Accountability Review Order. I would remind you, as usual, to silence your cell phones. Please call the roll.
Senator Deneen. Here. Senator Neal. Senator Wilson. Representative Banta.
Here.
Representative Bojanowski.
Here.
Representative Riley. Here. Co-Chair West.
Here.
Co-Chair Lewis.
Here.
Apologies.
Do we have a quorum? We have a quorum. Before we get started on our agenda, I would like to remind everybody this is very, very important that we have donuts over here. This is the only committee I've ever been in that we've had donuts, and that's fantastic. Thank you to staff for providing that. First on the agenda is a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a motion? We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Minutes are approved. First on the agenda, we will have the Office of Education Accountability Annual Report. As they're coming up, I would remind everybody this is the main job of this committee, as required by statute, is to hear this annual report. Whenever you are ready, introduce yourselves for the record and please proceed.
Great. I'm Marcia Seiler. I'm the Director of the Office of Education Accountability.
Could you make sure your mic's on and maybe
I think
pull
it's
it
just
forward?
not close enough. There we go.
Yeah, we have a problem with these.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marcia Seiler, Office of Education Accountability, and we're here today to present the 2022 Annual Report. Pursuant to KRS 7410, the office is to present an annual report to the EARS Committee that summarizes the annual research agenda and the work that we've completed in our research division, along with a summary of our investigative activity. And so I am going to turn this over to Bart and Brian to give a brief description of these activities, and we can answer any questions if you have.
Thank you. My name is Brian Jones. I'm Head of Investigations at the Office of Education Accountability. Just want to give you a brief description of what the Investigations Division does. And according to KRS 7410-2C4, that's in our enabling statute, we have investigatory authority over education complaints in the state. We currently have 4 full-time investigators. We've just hired a 5th one who'll be coming on board in August, and we have 1 part-time investigator. So we have plenty to do at the office. The types of cases and complaints that we get are of a great variety. The main ones we get complaints about the functioning of the school-based decision-making councils and whether or not they're able to function according to statute. We get a lot of complaints with regard to Board of Education members, unfortunately, as to whether or not they're still eligible to serve. I can go into more detail on that a little bit later. We get complaints about certification. In other words, is someone certified to teach in the field that they're teaching in? Also, we get complaints with regard to nepotism and hiring. So there's just a lot of different types of complaints that we can get. Our process once we get a complaint is we don't take action unless we have a written complaint. We do have a hotline, so somebody may call us in with a concern, but we don't evaluate it, much less take action on it and open up a case on it unless we have a written complaint to go on. We do accept anonymous complaints. We find that if there's enough information in them, they can be just as reliable as a complaint where we know who is making the complaint. So once we decide to open a case, I'll assign usually a couple of investigators to it. They will go to the district and interview relevant people. I will throw in very quickly, we do not interview students. We don't interview kids. That opens up a whole different bag of worms doing that. Do parents need to be there? What are the rights of the child? So we don't interview kids no matter how old they are. But we certainly do interview the staff and interested people that have information about the complaint. And once we investigate it, we come back to Frankfort. The team that's assigned to it will do a preliminary report, And we'll send that back to the district, to the people that we're looking into, and give them another opportunity to give us input. So they give us input when we investigate and interview them. Then they see the preliminary report, and that gives them another shot at either agreeing with or objecting to whatever we have in the preliminary. We consider that. We may or may not change the preliminary. Then we issue a final report that goes to the district. We don't see ourselves as a punitive organization. What we're trying to do is locate problems and fix them with remedies such as training. We would mandate that the people who are violating education law get training in the law so that the problem will not happen again. If necessary, we may refer it to another agency for further activity, but I'll go into that briefly in a second as well. Again, we have lots of different types of cases and complaints, and I will just briefly point out numbers. On page 2 of our report, there's information there about how many complaints we've taken lately, and this year, to be frank, they've just kind of skyrocketed. You'll see in 2022 that we had 478 written complaints. In 21, we had 363. It's not in a table here, but the numbers for so far in 2023 add up to 390 written complaints. If the second half of the year is anything like that, we'll be close to 800 complaints, and we've never had that many. I think in the past, one of our previous deputy directors ran the numbers, and we had anywhere from like 400 to 600. So this is certainly a spike in complaints that keeps us busy. We don't open up all of those complaints. Those numbers that were run years ago said I opened up something about 8 to 10% of the complaints. Oftentimes they're not for us to deal with, and of course the best answers are local, if the local board, superintendent, principals can work it out, and so we refer a lot of those back to the local district. Also, just briefly, let me touch on several types of complaints that are either practically or by statute we refer to another agency. Concerns over accountability testing by statute, those go to the Department of Ed. The Department of Education also has an excellent office of early learning and special education. They're the ones who know the IDEA law better, so when we get special education type complaints, we refer those to the department. When people have a discrimination complaint, they can always go to private counsel, but we often refer them to the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights or the United States Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. We do deal with some open meeting and open record violations because it's important that public agencies like school boards have their minutes in order, but oftentimes those cases may be sent to the Attorney General. As you know, the Attorney General is the enforcement agency for open meetings and open records. If we run into criminal activity, we can always refer that to law enforcement. We're not capable of doing serious big-time audits, so if there's a financial question, that can be sent to the auditor. And also, we're very well aware under 620.030, if you have reasonable grounds to believe that a child is dependent, neglected, or abused, you're obligated under statute to send those to law enforcement, the prosecutor, or the Cabinet for Human Resources or the Cabinet for Families and Children. Just briefly, other types of cases that we deal with, with regard to school-based decision-making, sometimes we get complaints about the election for the school-based decision-making council, whether or not the principal is adequately consulted with the council before he makes hirings, whether or not they have their mandated policies in line. With regard to the board members, there are questions oftentimes about board member eligibility. There is the concept of incompatible offices that we run in. A board member, even on the local level, is considered to be a state officer. So you can't be a state officer and at the same time have city or county employment or office. And so sometimes we run into situations where people who are sitting on the board have an incompatible office. Sometimes there are financial conflicts of interest, so we have to sort through the board members voting on something that they have a financial stake in, and that would be inappropriate. We have residency concerns. A lot of times people move from the district from which they were elected, which could make them ineligible. And one thing we see a lot sometimes is board members are not supposed to be involved in personnel other than the hiring of the superintendent or the board attorney. Sometimes the board members start meddling in personnel, like who gets hired to be a teacher or a principal, and that would be inappropriate. So again, I've kind of gone through this quickly, but that should give you an overview of what investigations does. And I can answer any questions that you have or turn it over to Dr. Ligori for his part.
I want to chime in and just mention something. We have a staff, currently of 4 investigators. Brian oversees. We're hiring one more for 5. He said we have 800 complaints. We look at every complaint, and Brian makes sure to touch base if there is a phone number or an email address with every complainant that calls in, if it's something that we can help them with and we're not opening. So you'll see the number of cases we open, but that doesn't mean that the other 750 cases that we don't open or complaints that come in we don't address. And that's where they spend a vast amount of time, is calling your constituents and talking to them about their issue and where best to get that solved. So it's a great resource for you all and your constituents that we help them. Everybody's not always thrilled that we don't open a case. We open very few, actually. But I just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
Dr. Ligori, were you going to present in this segment?
I was not.
Okay.
In the next segment.
So now we'll open up for questions now. Do we have questions from committee?
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Yes, I am going to present something very briefly.
We'll hold off on questions and let you present. Please proceed.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Bart Ligori. I am the Research Division Manager at the Office of Education Accountability. KRS 7410 requires EARS to adopt an annual research agenda for OEA. The agenda is assigned and carried out under the direction of EARS. The process involves a discussion of possible topics between OEA staff and members of EARS. Once topics have been narrowed, a summary of suggested topics is presented to EARS for consideration and adoption. OEA staff conducts research throughout the year and reports studies to EARS when the studies are completed. OEA's research division consists of a manager and 5 full-time research analysts. In 2022, OEA was an award-winning staff. We were awarded a Certificate of Impact by the National Conference of State Legislatures for its 2019 report, an overview of school counselors in Kentucky. In 2023, we were awarded another Certificate of Impact by NCSL for our 2021 report, an interactive feature, Funding Kentucky Public Education, an analysis of education funding through the SEEK formula. In 2022, OEA completed the following studies. Each has been published and can be found on the LRC Publications website. Kentucky District Data Profile, School Year 2021. That's Research Report number 475. A review of school funding adequacy studies, Research Report number 480. Credit Recovery in Kentucky, Advantages and Drawbacks, Research Report 479, which, as a matter of fact, I found out yesterday, won another NCSL Notable Document Award for 2023. So congratulations to all staff who were involved in that report. You could read more about these reports in the annual report. In 2023, there were 3 approved study topics: the annual district data profiles, which I'll present in a few minutes; classified and certified staffing shortages, which will examine classified and certified staffing in Kentucky school districts. Study will examine various indicators of classified and certified staffing shortages during recent years and what districts have done historically to recruit and retain classified and certified staff. In addition, OEA staff will review what Kentucky and other states have done to recruit and retain employees and address possible shortages in developing career pathways. And also review of effectiveness and efficiency of school districts in affecting students' academic and post-secondary outcomes. This study will conduct a longitudinal analysis of Kentucky school expenditures and outcomes associated with academic and post-secondary success. Education expenditures will be examined at the state and district level. Elements will include, but are not limited to, student assessment, graduation rates, staffing, and post-secondary indicators of success, taking into account student and district characteristics. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will now open the floor up for questions from members. Do we have any questions? Co-Chair Lewis.
You had mentioned the number of complaints were up. Any reason you would think that would be?
I really don't know. I mean, a lot of speculation was maybe things calmed down during the pandemic when people weren't meeting as much, and then now they were, back to actually being active in school, and maybe that caused more interaction and more chance for conflict. Although, we didn't see any numbers like that before the pandemic. So I really don't know. One thing that has been noted, for whatever reason, we seem to be getting a lot more of special education related complaints. And like I said, we refer those to the department because they've got the expertise. Unfortunately, they stick in your mind more. We've been getting more complaints about bullying. And that's one thing that just simply has to be settled on the local level. I mean, I certainly call the superintendents and the principals and lay out to them what's going on, but that's a classic case of where the only way you would settle a dispute like that, you'd have to go to the district and interview the kids. You'd have to talk to the students. And as I said, we have never done that. I don't think the legislators want us to do that. We don't have any business, talking to 10-year-olds and 16-year-olds or whatnot. So while those are certainly disturbing if somebody's not getting the services they're entitled to with regard to special ed, or if somebody's getting bullied, it certainly bothers us, but we just simply refer those somewhere else. Why we're getting more of those, I don't know. Maybe that's just a reflection of society. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
And one thing to point out is, thank you, Bart. Frequently, if a district is in turmoil and distress, and there's just a lot going on in a district, and our name, our contact gets out there, we'll see a flood from a district in distress. And KDE will see this too. Todd's back there, and I know that, we could point out, we won't name names, there are certain districts that are just going through a lot, and so frequently we'll just get a flood of complaints about a single district. And a lot of times, if they are going through turmoil in hiring somebody, or in a termination, or a tough decision-making process at the board level, people try to pull us in and help them, and that's not our role, so we don't get involved in those. We may come in after and see if processes were followed, or open records and open meetings were followed. Sometimes we follow up with that type of investigation, but we don't drop ourselves in the middle of those and try to fix problems. But I think we've been seeing quite a bit of that too.
Yeah.
I had a couple questions. My first question, Co-Chair Lewis had the exact same question that I had on, the spike in these things, what the subject matter is. And so you said bullying and special needs. Were there any more that kind of caught your attention as, like, we're seeing a huge spike in this subject matter area, or that you hadn't seen before?
I don't know if they're spiking or not. We do get a lot of complaints with regard to certification and people who don't go through the alternative certification process correctly. The situation where you need to be, the one where you need to be enrolled in a program in college and simultaneously have a promise of a job in the district. And
so would that generally be like another teacher in the district leveling the complaint?
Probably frankly, someone who didn't get the job. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Who finds that a person who's alternatively certified, in their mind, they're thinking, I am certified, that person is not.
Right.
But they are in a program that's been approved, so they are. And so we do get a lot of certification type.
Gotcha. My second question is, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I would think most parents, most people in the district, no offense, they may not know you exist.
Right.
And so they really have to kind of dig to kind of, see how the process works and things like that. Do you think you're more out there now? You're more visible? Maybe that's the reason for the increase?
I don't know. I mean, we've been around since 1990, and so.
But you don't really market yourself for advertising.
No, we don't.
No.
We
No,
don't.
we do that.
We-
I would, that's funny you say that. We do have certain districts where our name is out there. We've been in there since 1990. Every few years, we're back on a certain issue, so that community knows of us. Every once in a while, we'll get a new community or a new complaint, and all of a sudden, we just get a bunch in that district, and so they are just finding out about us.
So it may be one person in the district has a memory of, hey, this is the agency that.
And I think a lot of the different organizations, education organizations, KDE staff, things like that, they may get a complaint and say, well, that's not an issue we can handle, but OEA. So we do have people that refer, they'll say, we called somebody and they said we should call you, or a complaint comes in. So I think we do get referrals of that sort, but we don't know where people get us. And we do have online, we have a online complaint form. So if they seek out education complaint, I think we do come up, and it's a pretty easy process. They don't even need to put their, we take anonymous as long as there's sufficient detail.
One thing also I would add, social media has probably kicked in more so than it has in 1990, and through time, up to the present, there's more social media sites, and then people who have a complaint, they may want to try to generate some support, so they'll put it online, and then boom, after that you'll have more people complain. So that could be a factor.
And through the years, we've gotten pretty decent media coverage through local media, and then the newspapers pick up our cases. We get people that do open records for all of our final reports, and then they decide, are they going to write an article on it? So somebody may read something in the paper that references a report that we made or a finding, and that could trigger them to file a complaint.
So thank you so much. So now we're going to, any other questions from members? Seeing none, we have to actually accept the report now. I have a question. By the way, I'm new. I'm new to this committee. So as far as the distribution of the report, obviously it's posted on the LRC website. How are we going to get this report as far as the members? Just have our members check out the LRC website? Is that how it generally works?
Generally, I think we can also send hard copies. Oh, thank you, Bart. He's reminding me. We can get hard copies to everybody. We'll send them up once they're final, and we can get bound copies.
I would suggest we do that because it sounds like some of these reports are very, very important. I got one more question before we vote. And I don't know if this is the proper time in the meeting to do this or not, but could one of you speak briefly about the teacher shortage report? Just maybe, we've looked at that. We're getting ready to look at that again. Maybe key takeaway, maybe one or two key takeaways from that report.
Right now we're analyzing the data as we speak. A couple of things that do show up in terms of some of the data that we have been seeing is that we have noticed a little bit more, obviously, of a shortage, and we're focusing both on classified and certified staffing shortages. So one of the things that we have noticed are that the classified shortage is a little bit more widespread, and it depends upon the time of the year that we're looking at it. We've done some analysis of that. I'm trying to remember it.
So that's the study that we're presenting in October. So
Yep.
They're just analyzing that
Right.
data right
Gotcha.
now.
It's too early for
Yeah, it's a little
I
early.
got you.
It's premature. I mean, they've got it. We did an excellent widespread survey across the state, so we'll have that data analysis, and then they're doing, data that they've collected from KDE and others. So we'll have that in October.
In October.
In October.
I do have a specific request on that. If you
Sure
could
thing.
work with myself and Co-Chair Tipton on getting us as much information as you can
Okay.
in the next couple months on that, because we're getting ready to work on that. Any further questions? Seeing none at this time, I'll make a motion to accept this report as presented. Is there a second? We have a second. We have a voice vote on this. All those in favor of accepting the report say aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Report is accepted. Thank you so much for this presentation, part of the presentation. Moving right into the next segment. You all are going to present the Kentucky District Data Profiles. If Dr. LaGuardia would proceed, but I made a mistake earlier. I will say I said staff brought the donuts. You actually brought the donuts.
I did.
Well, thank you for that. This does not violate ethics rules, the cup of coffee rule, because you're not a registered lobbyist. So please proceed.
Good morning. Just for the record, my name is Dr. Bartley Gorey. I'm the Research Division Manager at the Office of Education Accountability. Today we're presenting the Kentucky District Data Profiles for school year 2022. This publication won a Notable Document Award in 2012 from the National Conference of State Legislatures. This is the 16th year of the report. The first year of the report was the 2007 school year. Caution should be used when comparing certain measures over the years. Graduation rate, student achievement, and fund balance percent. Those have all changed over the years. The 2022 data profiles have gotten a bit of a makeover, as you can see. We've included some new data points to keep the publication fresh. We also included comparisons between Kentucky and surrounding states on some key education metrics. These changes are reflected in both the print and the interactive editions of the data profiles. For the purpose of time today, we'll focus mostly on the print version of the profiles and the changes in the 2022 data profiles. However, I will give a small demo of the online version. I would also like to give a shout out to the entire OEA staff who helped determine the changes in this year's data profiles to make sure the most relevant data points were selected for inclusion. In particular, I want to thank Albert Alexander, our data guru over at OEA. He compiled all the data and put the profiles together and put them into the print version. These are our primary data sources for most of the data. There are two versions of the district data profiles that are designed to complement each other. The print version that you have in front of you is great for a deep dive into one district's data. You have up to 10 years of data right there on two opposing pages. The online version is an interactive version with a lot of colors and bells and whistles. That version is great for making comparisons between districts. The visualizations include the same data, where you can sort the data from greatest to least in selected variables, heat maps that are ready at the click of a button, and longitudinal graphs that have information for each year dating back to 2013. As I mentioned before, the bulk of this presentation will focus on the print edition, but I will do some cutaways to show some screenshots of the interactive edition. At the end of the presentation, I will also do a quick demonstration of a new interactive data visualization. Here's an overview of what's in the print version of the data profiles. The data dictionary defines terms and parameters for assembling the data and identifies the sources of the data. That's followed by 171 district profiles in alphabetical order. After those is one profile for Kentucky as a whole. Then there are comparisons between Kentucky and neighboring states. The values for Kentucky and the U.S. as a whole are bolded. At the end of the report are several appendices. Those are useful for comparing districts and to see where certain districts rank. For example, one appendix shows all districts ranked by per pupil assessment. Another one shows districts ranked by percent of students eligible for free or reduced price lunch. Those are the appendices. Here's a bird's eye view of the profile. Each profile has 2 pages. Page 1 has an overview, staffing information, and student characteristics, graduation and discipline data. Page 2 has financial and student performance data. The overview section of each profile shows the number of students in terms of membership and adjusted average daily attendance, as well as the number of A1 schools in the district. I want you to take note of 2 new features in this year's profiles. In previous years, we made comparisons to the last 3 years. This year, we are making comparisons to the previous year, so that's 2021, 5 years ago, 2018, and 10 years ago, 2013. This year, we also added the percent chronically absent and attendance percent in this section. Page 1 of the profiles also provides demographics, membership by grade level, and race and ethnicity for 2022, 2021, 5 years ago, and 10 years ago. On the first line, you see the percent of students eligible for free and reduced price lunch. For those of you who may be new to the subcommittee, or new to education research, free and reduced price lunch eligibility is often used as a proxy for low income status. Some of the other measures include percent homeless, percent limited English proficiency, and percent migrant. New for this year, we have included the number of students in foster care. We have also broken out the percent of exceptional children who fall into 3 categories. There are 3 different categories: speech, moderate, and severe. Each of these gets a different weighting in the SEEK formula. The appendix has a total number of exceptional children by district. Also on page 1 is information about graduation, retention, and dropout rates, along with dropout and disciplinary counts. New for this year, you can see data on bullying and harassment. You can see the number and percent of students that transfer into and out of the school district from other Kentucky school districts. HB 563 of 2021 allowed the free movement of students between districts and allowed the SEEK money to follow the students. Previously, you required district agreements between themselves, but now we have free movement of students. By looking at these numbers, you can see how many students districts are gaining or losing. That would also impact how much money a district is gaining or losing as well. The staffing section includes the number of classified and certified personnel, teacher experience, rank, and salaries. Please note that the number of FTE teachers only includes classroom teachers. FTE stands for full-time equivalent. Please note that for this part of the profiles, we include data for 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and 2022. This year, we added the number of nationally board certified teachers. We also added the number of FTE administrators. We also added the number of students per counselor. SB 1 of 2019 made it the goal of all school districts to have at least one counselor or mental health professional for every 250 students, and that was codified into KRS 158-4416. Here we have a cutaway to the online profiles. We see the overall trend in students per counselor from the interactive profiles. I've included 2 districts in the blue and the state in the gold. You can see that over the last 10 years, the number of students per counselor has declined, with some of the largest declines being in the last few years. There are also state and district salary schedules by rank and years of experience. The state profile shows the average of all the district schedules. Finance is reported on page 2 of the report. It reports a rich array of information starting with per pupil current expenditures and revenues. Please note this shows data for 2022, 2021, 5 years ago, and 10 years ago. If you want to see per pupil current expenditures for each year, they're available on the online version of the data profiles. The rollovers, and I have one right here, will give you the exact dollar amount for each year. State current expenditures report expenditures by function, fund balance percent, and the end of year fund balance are also included. Here we see that the fund balance percent has increased over the last 10 years. SEEK analysis and tax rates show data related to SEEK and taxes. There is a difference between the state page and the district pages. The state page shows the number of districts levying the taxes, and the district pages show the actual rates. Here we see a districts page. This year, we changed how we report SEEK and tax data to make it more understandable. We also moved the facilities nickels to the back of the report. We also included data on levied rate type. A little bit about levied rate type. Each year, school districts can increase revenue by up to 4% without the potential recall of that tax increase. We include in this segment whether school boards took the 4%, took a rate lower than the 4%, or took the rate above the 4%. And whether districts took above or below the 4%, that's actually not available, readily available in any other source. Here we see what it would look like as a map on the online data profiles, with the 55 districts that took the 4%, that took under the 4% in the light blue, the 106 districts that took the 4% in the medium blue, and the 10 districts that took over the 4%, that's in the darker blue. The performance section has data on proficiency rates on the Kentucky Summative Assessments and ACT. It includes data on math, reading, science, and social studies and writing proficiency. There are data comparing each district to the state by level, elementary, middle, and high. For math and reading, there are data for all students and economically disadvantaged students. There are data for ACT scores as well. These data include scale scores and the percent meeting CPE college readiness benchmarks. Post-secondary readiness rates and components are included. These are reported as a percentage of graduates and non-graduating 12th graders. A student can be included in more than one of those measures. Post-secondary readiness is comprised of academic and career readiness. Academic readiness includes students meeting at least one college readiness benchmark, taking an AP, IB, or Cambridge test and getting a passing score, or taking a dual credit course and earning a C or higher. This is a departure from years past where we only included the number of AP tests and the number of dual credit courses in the data profiles. So we included some more data. Career readiness includes students obtaining an industry cert, passing an end of program assessment, taking a dual credit career course and earning a C or higher, completing an apprenticeship, or completing a work-based learning experience, which that'll be available in the future, those data. And this is the first time, this is the first time that we've included career and technical education data in the data profiles. Here we can see, for example, that in terms of industry certs, about 21.8% of 12th graders and graduating seniors have earned industry certificates. Every district is given an overall performance rating in the accountability system. It varies from red to blue, with red being the lowest and blue being the highest. These overall performance ratings vary by level, so it's different for elementary, middle, and high school. These performance ratings are determined by their indicator scores. The indicator scores each have their own weights. In these weightings, reading and math proficiency have the greatest values at each level. Please note that the 2022 ratings are based on status alone, but the 2023 ratings will combine status and change pursuant to HB 158 of the 2020 regular session. Here we see what it would look like if we were to map out overall accountability for the state at the elementary school level. You can use the online interactive maps to track accountability levels by geographic regions. The rollovers give you more information about a district. The interstate comparisons are included after the state page. There's a lot of great information in these. Here, Kentucky, its surrounding states, and the U.S. as a whole are compared. Kentucky and U.S. data, those are going to be bolded. In a few minutes, I'll show you what it looks like on the interactive page. The data on the online version of the data profiles is identical to the data found in the print version, but is presented in a way that users can interact with the data. There were certain requirements we wanted to adhere to in making the tool successful. This year, I will show you the newest portion of the data profiles, the interstate comparisons, and give you a walkthrough of how it works. You can navigate, you can find these visualizations by navigating from the LRC main page. So you go to Legislative Research Commission, the main page, go to LRC Publications, then Research Reports. So Legislative Research Commission, LRC Research Reports. You will then get a listing of all LRC research reports. You can find the data profiles here you would like and click on the link for the interactive feature. It will bring you to a separate page on the LRC website. I'll now walk you through a quick tutorial of the latest part of the page. Let me put that up. And, oh. Give me 1 second while it loads. Okay. Within the page, there are 4 separate visualizations. District Data Profiles 2022, Heat Maps for Selected Variables 2022, 10-year trend data for selected variables, and the Compendium of State Education Data. This year we have moved away from tabs. This year we have moved away from tabs and we have gone to pages. By clicking on these buttons, you get to different pages within the visualization. So we have demographics, teacher data, finance, ACT, and NAEP and graduation. By clicking this button, you can make the visualization take up the full screen. Let's click on demographics. There are 4 major components of this visualization: a map of the eastern United States, navigation buttons, which allow you to navigate between different pages, the filter, which allows you to select different variables, and a list of states with values corresponding to the variable you chose and their relative rank. Please note that the U.S. value is at the very bottom. As you roll over each state, it will give you more information about the state as it relates to the variable you have chosen. The first variable chosen is 2021 total enrollment. As you can see on the list, California is first with nearly 6 million students, followed by Texas, Florida, and New York. At the bottom of the list is Wyoming, the District of Columbia, and Vermont. Below that, you can see the United States, the total for the United States being approximately 50 million students. If you notice, the only states that are highlighted in blue are Kentucky and its neighboring states. However, if you roll over a non-highlighted state, you can still see the data for that state. If you're looking for Kentucky and you can't find it on this list, what you can do is you can go to this filter and you could sort it in alphabetical order, and then you could find it a lot more easily. See where we're ranked. I'm going to navigate to the next page, which has to do with teacher staffing, as we're doing a study on staffing shortages that we are presenting later this fall, as we mentioned. The default visualization is pupil-teacher ratio. Please notice that these are reverse ordered as they're in their rankings, as a lower number is more desirable. I will now select a different variable that is of interest, average teacher salary. As you see, the map and the rankings change automatically to display the new variable. Within average teacher salary, you see how each of the states are ranked. Between Kentucky and its neighboring states, we see that there are differences. We may notice that Kentucky is ranked 37th. This may be due to differences in the cost of living. We can go back to the variable selector and choose cost of living adjusted teacher salary. Here we see the states ranked by cost of living adjusted teacher salary. Kentucky now actually is ranked 29th. As you can see, there's an abundance of data in the district data profiles. There are over 100 variables in total collected over 16 years. Because we report these data annually, the overall quality of the data improves at KDE and partner agencies. If you have any questions about the tool or the profiles, we would be happy to answer them. Also, if you'd like to stay afterwards to work with the profile, I'd gladly stay after as well. We could even have donuts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Excellent report. I'm going to ask one question, then open it up to other members, and then I'll have some follow-ups. So I think we normally get a printed version of this, members do. Is that going to continue or? Okay.
Yes, I will continue.
We're
Yep. And there should have been one included in the packets, is that correct?
we have 2 copies, I believe, up here. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone does. I'm sorry, I did not know that. Yes, thank you.
And yeah, we will get, it's going through the complete editing process right now, but you will get those shortly.
Once we approve.
I'm sorry, if you so choose to approve.
So any questions from other members? Representative Bojanowski.
Okay, on slide number 9 on staffing data,
Yep. So
on the administrator full-time equivalents, is that, and I kind of looked in the definitions too. Is that building or central office?
Those are building.
Okay, so that's
I'm sorry, that's both. Excuse me.
That's
that is
both.
both of them.
okay. So I mean, for Jefferson County, and is that per student? I mean, we have more than 600 administrators in the district, don't we?
Yes, we do. We'll take a look into that to make sure that the numbers are correct. I don't have that.
You can come on up. This is a very important question.
Is that advice?
Hi, I'm Sabrina Cummins. I work for OEA. Basically, these are the codes that Katie uses to submit to NCES. I will tell you that some districts are not coding things properly. So the numbers are off for some. I looked into it, and it appears that they're just not coding them correctly in the system. And what you call an administrator may be different than what's reported to NCES.
All right, because I know. I mean, I've looked. I'm sorry. May
Please
I?
proceed.
Yes. I've looked at some of the KDAE financials, and it'll designate columns between building level administrators, so principals, assistant principals who are in buildings with children, versus central office. And when the district had all buildings elementary have an assistant principal, that increased our numbers, but it was definitely people on the ground with children. As opposed to just bloating a central office position. So I just really wanted to understand that metric. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Bojanowski, are you comfortable with that? I guess we could request that they go back to JCPS and
Yeah, I
get a
really
better
would like
number.
to understand what that number means, if we could.
Okay, I can give you a detailed printout.
That would be
and
great.
then I'll talk to Jefferson County.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Yep. Any other questions from members? Seeing none, I think you've answered my question, but it was going to be primarily, we got the district profiles in here, and my main question was going to be, where is that data aggregated? So across the state, and so I'm assuming it's when you did your tutorial on the different spots on LRC website.
Yes.
That's where you aggregate.
Yeah, if you were
That's
to...
the primary spot where that's all aggregated, right?
Yeah, if you were to... And let me do this here real quickly. Hold on. Sorry. It would be right here. So, for example, here we see that... you see where there's that circle? If you click right here, that's where you'd get the printed version. So
Gotcha.
475.
So we can view it there, and then you can also do a printout from there of the overall statewide aggregation of
You could do that, yeah.
of many of the metrics.
You can do that. In terms of, that would be for the whole PDF. If you wanted to look at a particular section, or if you want to print out for one metric, or if you want to print out just for a few, I would recommend one of the better ways to do that might be to go to the online version, and you can do printouts. You could also do to an image or to a excuse me, or to a PowerPoint slide.
And Bart can, if you want assistance in doing that and how to use that, especially if you're working on a bill or presenting to a group and want data, Bart can help show you how to use that tool to get a PDF that you can then print or use. Any of those reports are also on the OEA website. We have an OEA link on the LRC website, and we have publications there too. You can hit that, and it's all of our publications. And any of those that you want copies of, say you're going to a meeting and want to bring profiles for superintendents or whoever you're meeting with, you can order copies. But we can get copies to you for your office.
Senator Deneen.
Thank you. You mentioned that there were other districts that may have reported numbers that aren't accurate at this point with the collection of data. Is there any standards that we provide those districts, reporting standards for data? Is there any kind of data standards that they can follow to make that easier for them to avoid any of this discrepancy?
Those are provided by KDE, and KDE does set the data standards for the collection of data, and they do give these districts a lot of support in terms of the collection and the reporting of those data. So
Okay.
I would say it's at that level.
Thank you.
One thing that's very important about this report is that this is a one-stop for all of this data. You don't have to go to KDE's website or CPE or different agencies that have this data. We've pulled it all in, and by pulling it in, we've got staff that then looks at all the data and may see outliers. I mean, just say you see a data point that says 0 or 600, and you know it could be it should be 1,200. So we try to catch those, and then we work with KDE staff in clarifying, correcting, and other staff.
Yeah, my main question goes along the lines of Senator Deneen and Representative Bojanowski. KDE has the guidelines, the data points. Do we need legislation to mandate that the districts provide data in this way? Because we need for the data to be accurate, it has to be the same. So
A lot of these data points, there is legislation that is that relates to these data points. However, every so often, a district might need extra training, as we all may know, and it might just be they might have slipped up in how they report it, or there might have just been a glitch. But there are generally there's generally statutes and regulations that determine the data standards for all of these data points.
gotcha. Thank you. Representative Bojanowski.
Yeah. So this is kind of spun into something that I didn't intend. I'm not in any way accusing JCPS of trying to fudge data. What I'm saying is that the data that JCPS shared with KDE that seemed to reflect what I sensed was accurate data is not reflected in your data. So while it's kind of spun into maybe KDE made a mistake, maybe you all made a mistake is a possibility as well. I don't want this to become I just want to understand why there seems to be a discrepancy in what these numbers are versus what JCPS has reported to KDE in the documents that I've seen on staffing.
Yeah, and we understand that, and we see it all the time. We don't point blame at, fingers at anybody and say you're at fault. We just try to look at the data. We notice outliers, and we work with the agency and the district to try to figure out maybe something just didn't get filed correctly, or maybe something just didn't come through to us correctly. So we work with KDE on this data all the time.
Okay, thank you.
And clearly we have the ability through this committee to drill down further if we have further questions, which is what we're doing. And
Yeah.
don't want to insinuate that I'm implying that JCPS did something wrong here. Co-Chair Lewis.
Well, more of a comment than a question, but this is really important. And we get these questions up here from our other colleagues and people. I'm always getting, well, everybody's central office is overstaffed. Well, if we can show them, this is great information. No, look at your administrative report at your central office, 1%. And they've got all the data there in front of them, but we need to know that it is accurate from whatever is being reported to you all, to KDE or whatever, because there's tons of information here. And on that, we're hearing all the time, Kentucky's ranked blah. Well, there's your data. We've got that to say in the legislation that we want to pass, here's why we're doing this, because of this. So this is one of the most important documents for us and school districts to sort of compare each other. Okay, is my neighboring county, how's their administrative support? So this is really, all of our legislators need this book and need to be able to depend on it when we start talking about issues. So again, I want to thank you. It's a lot of work, I know, but this is very important. So
I'm glad
thank
you all think that. We think it's one of
Yes.
the most important reports we put out just for the accumulation of data. He said we started it with 2008 or 7 data in our office. We would go out and do investigations, and in 2007 I we worked with Al and Sabrina and the crew and said, we just need all of the data about each district on just 2 pages, just so when we go into a district, we know what's going on. And that's sort of simply how it started, and we've turned it into this report, and it's continued, and I think it just improves every year. And we find errors in the data just because our staff has worked with this data for so long, they know when something looks wrong. But we can't catch every problem. And so when you assign other studies, like the adequacy study and the credit recovery study, then we deep dive into that data, and then we can find more issues and, reporting issues, or whether the data is being collected accurately. So they all go hand in hand. And so knowing the data well through the profiles helps our other studies too.
Thank you. I'll just echo Co-Chair Lewis. Y'all do an excellent job. And we should never, of all the legislation we consider, if it's not a good piece of legislation, it's not due to a lack of information. It's clearly here. Just the first 18 pages of the report, I mean, you could read those 18 pages and get a primer on the acronyms and what goes on in Kentucky. So you may not like this, but when was the last time you all presented to the Education Committee?
For the data profiles or
In anything?
I think 2 or 3 years ago we had, I think it was the SEEK report.
The SEEK
So
report.
that was in
2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
2020, I think 2020 or 2021.
Okay.
The SEEK
So
report.
I'm gonna warn you. We'll probably request that you all present again to Education Committee. Basically, what is your role, and then give maybe a reduced version similar to this. Here's the information that's available to each member. So we have a lot of new members, and I didn't know about all the, I had access to all this data for a long time. So I'll just throw that out there here.
Great.
So, any further questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion to accept this report, the data profile report? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. This is a voice vote. All those in favor of accepting the report say aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda, we have a review of administrative regulations. (703) KAR 5270, Kentucky's accountability system. Once you all are settled and ready, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning, Todd Allen, General Counsel for the Department of Education and State Board of Education.
Good morning, Rhonda Sims, Associate Commissioner, Office of Assessment and Accountability, Kentucky Department of Education.
Good morning, Reagan Satterwhite, Policy Advisor for the Office of Career and Technical Education at the Kentucky Department of Education.
And we have before you this morning, of course, a regulation involving assessment and accountability. By statute, those regulations come to this body for review instead of the Administrative Regulation Review Subcommittee. What we have is 703 KAR 5270, that's Kentucky's accountability system. And very big picture, this regulation is an amendment that incorporates some required changes from Senate Bill 59 of 2022, as well as Senate Bill 25 of 2023. And that is to incorporate work-based learning programs into the accountability system so that schools receive credit for work-based learning experiences that students complete.
Anyone else? Okay.
No, I think that.
Yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Happy to answer any questions.
So mine's a
available to you.
procedural question, and I'm chair of the Administrative Regs Committee, as you know, and I did not know this. So this reg never flowed through Administrative Regs, correct?
Comes here instead, yeah.
Gotcha. So I thought we got to review all regs. I didn't know some were outside. So any questions from members on this regulation in particular? So is this the time where we can call it ask for a deficiency motion?
You can.
I don't see any motions. So seeing no questions, thank you for the presentation.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Have a great day.
Next on the agenda, we have a discussion of topics for OEA in the 2024 term. I believe the staff has distributed the agenda topic, a page like this for members, just a couple of sentences, 1 and 2. And I'm new to the committee, so other members may have the same question. I want to, put out there how the committee works, and so for clarity. Normally, how this committee works is October, November, the Senate comes up with a topic, the House comes up with a topic that's presented as an OEA study topic. We vote on it and approve it and going down the road. At this time, we're doing something a little bit different. This is a Senate recommended topic that we're voting on right now. The only difference is we're doing it just a little bit early. Is the only difference. So I just want to throw that for full disclosure to all members. And so it's real short. I'm going to read the proposed study topic. Number 1, review of school district current governance models used across the U.S., taking into account factors such as range of district configurations, district size, district setting, school choice opportunities, and population characteristics. The second part of the study would be review state intervention models, considering reasons for intervention, models implemented, and results. So it's a large body of work. It's going to take quite an effort and quite a while to study the topic, but this is the topic proposed to be voted on. Are there any questions on this topic? Seeing none, I'll make a motion that this be the study topic that OEA, one of the study topics that OEA investigates in the 2024 term. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Once again, this is a voice vote. All those in favor of this topic say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. So this is, you got your marching orders on this particular topic. Any other questions? We're going to move into a couple other items. Do we have any other questions before I proceed? Now we'll discuss further items, basically the October and November agenda. The October agenda, the OEA will present on, as they said earlier, their classified and certified staffing shortages. November 1st, the OEA will present a review of effectiveness and efficiency of school districts in affecting students' academic and post-secondary outcomes, and approve the 2024 OEA research. So that's what's coming up in October and November. Any other business to come before this committee today? Seeing none, do we have a motion for adjournment?